Hello, my gorgeous goddesses. Welcome to this special conversation celebration as part of the launch of Soulpreneur. I am so thrilled to have you joining us and with my incredibly delicious special guest for this. I guess you could call it a fireside chat. Pull up a book, pull up with your favorite book and curl into your favorite corner of the couch. And we're going to be talking all about confidence in self-publishing with my beautiful, beautiful soul sister, support, book writing guru, all of the things, makes my life complete in so many different ways, Lara of Walnut Wednesday. Thank you so much for being here. I feel so just, we've been messaging all week about this and how fun this conversation is going to be.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me and for being here if you're listening. This is going to be fun. I've really been looking forward to it, like you say, Rose, all week.
I know, because our relationship behind the scenes has been going on for quite some time in regards to this book. So as we're at the point now of being able to celebrate her being out in the world and published and real life in hands, which is just the most delicious feeling as an author ever, Lazz and I have actually been co-creating this book together for quite some time. And I don't know, we have such a cute little story of how this came about and how we got to where we are now, that this book is so integral to the support you've given, the support you've given me has been so integral to bringing this book to life. So I guess really what I first wanted to start this conversation and this celebration with is just talking about how these sorts of processes and relationships around self-publishing or writing or authorship can be so organic.
Yeah, totally. And the way that this evolved was completely and totally organic. And if your listeners don't know what being a walnut is, like, go and find out. It's super easy. It's super everywhere. But there was a lot of walnutting to be done in terms of like being a part of this with you, Rose. So like, I think in many ways, like we were each other's little catalysts of creation, because so much has come from our little love story. That's been amazing. So I guess it just started where I think it was you did the invitation initially and we're like, hey Lazz, I know that you've written a book. I got some questions. And I was like, yeah, I'll tell you all the answers while it's fresh. Let's go. And then it turned into this beautiful like exchange of, I think it was a program of yours, Rose, that I had been like on my bucket list, like saving my little penny for. And I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to purchase this. Like it was a full manifested, aligned thing. And you were like, well, I know you want this, so should we do a trade-off? And you have that, and I ask you a few questions. And I was like, absolutely. Crying like, oh my God, this can't be true, like what the hell. Just for like my questions, like who the heck wants to listen to me and what I have to say? And it kind of evolved from there, didn't it, Rose, where it was like it just kept evolving and developing into something new. And then it turned into, a little bit more regular chats rather than just scheduling a call. It became a little bit more and more and went from there. So
I know it's awesome to be part of, but I also love being able to share that as the opening to this, because I think sometimes when we are in creative areas like writing a book, for example, or putting something out into the world that is just a purely almost like solo process, finding your people and having the confidence to do the thing that you're here to do is so important. And that confidence that came from being able to talk to you and being able to tap into your wisdom around your process, because in case you haven't already heard, Lazz has written an amazing book. Do you have one with you? Do you have one with you handy? Yes. Excellent.
It's so pretty.
And so, I think we we can learn so much from growing alongside one another. It doesn't always have to be a kind of hierarchy of, oh, you've done the thing I want to do, so I'm putting you above me or whatever. It really can be that organic process of, like you say, it was walnuttings or confidence steps on both of our sides for me to reach out and say, hey, this is something I know I'm meant to be doing, but I need that support to actually make it happen. Because the confidence to trust in myself as an author, when at that stage I'd never even out loud said the words of I'm an author, or given myself permission to be an author. And then equally for your incredible work that you do of empowering women to celebrate themselves and to be confident in themselves and to go after their dreams without judgment or self-limitation or anything like that. So it really just came together in that beautiful way of book writing and confidence, and this incredible thing kind of blossomed from there.
Yeah, and something I've taken away from a mentor that I'm like absolutely obsessed with is she says that because I still struggle with the word confident, like, oh, she's confident, because I don't think anyone actually feels like I'm confident, you know what I mean? Like, it's not something that's always there. But she says confidence is compounded courage, or confidence is courage compounded. So it's little bits of brave, doing brave bits all the time. And I'm a big believer of baby steps and letting just the things fall in front of your nose and then deciding if you're going to pick them up or down, so I live by that, where this moment was again like our union was like one of those little moments where it's like a yes or no, and then okay, this sounds pretty exciting, let's try it, let's see who I can step into by helping someone else become an author. Like, still for me, it's a year on and I'm still like blow out brain emoji about that I can call myself an author, like, it's a beautiful feeling. And to be able to celebrate that in someone else through my own experience, it's so cool. Like, I think hands down, if you're looking to step into authorship or even just be a writer, having, like you say, Rose, a person is so integral to the whole entire process, because your friends and your family, they love you, but this journey is not for the faint of heart. And it's so good to have a person who gets it, and I like it with air bunny quotes.
I couldn't agree more, because you can have all of the everyday people in your life cheering you on, or not, in many cases, as authors or writers will know, because it's a very intangible process, right? You're sitting at your computer, or you're sitting with your journal or your notebook, and you're doing this very solo thing for the most part. And until it does become printed words on pages that people can flick through or scroll through, or whatever the final result is, it's really hard to connect people to the vastness of what you're putting together. And having someone who gets it and is in your corner and is able to be there to hold space through the journey that it is, because writing a book is a fucking journey.
Yeah. Like, I would never stop saying it. It's a journey, all right, and it's hard. It's easy, like, you can do it, but it's hard. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a ride.
Yeah, and I love that you gave me so many permission slips along the way, and one of the biggest ones being that if it were truly that easy, everyone would do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's such an important reminder and thing to like keep at the front of mind when you're doing it. I think that people who are authors, you know that you are one. You feel that it's like a thing in your body, and you just know, like, I'm going to write a book, like, it's just going to happen, But yeah, a big thing for me was like, if it were easy, and that's what my mentor said to me too, if it were easy, everyone would do one, everyone would be doing it. And it sounds really like, I want to do it, yay, But actually coming to sit down with intention and do it, it is hard. It's not for the faint of heart. It is not for the easy breezy cover girls who are like, yes, me too, woo. Like, that's great at the start, but there is so much deeper lifting the rugs to so many layers of your life within authorship.
Oh, and that it's like an initiation into the next level version of yourself, the death of the old identities of yourself, stating those intentions. And I love that you touched on that, because I think that was something that really early on we had a conversation about that, and you were encouraging me to do some things around my vision for the book that I was creating. And because I was, I had the vision of what I knew I was wanting to write about and what I was wanting to share about, but you really gave me that kind of creative license to say, okay, can you go away and make a vision board? Can you go away and, get some sources of inspiration, of evidence of people who have done what you want to do, or in a similar genre to what you're writing about with Soulpreneur. And I think one of the things that we talked about was that I knew that I wanted to embody my vision of a best-selling author and my energetic frequency of being a best-selling author. But we were having this beautiful conversation where I was saying, but put a little asterisk beside that, because I don't want to buy into the definition of bestseller that is given by like mass marketing or media or, bestseller lists or anything. I said, I just want to feel like a best-selling author.
And that's where that like intentional journey of the self comes in, because what does best-selling mean to you? What does success mean to you? What does being a bestseller actually mean when you have the blinders on and you're just being yourself? Because that's who it's really like. Your book by default will help people and all the beautiful things that come with having a physical book as a reader, but it's for yourself. It's for there's this big fiery pathway within you somewhere on like a cosmic level that I feel book writing just really lights up inside. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that journey to get there is so beautiful, and it gives you so much as a person, but also there are all these projections and outside things that you have to navigate along the way, because of course, for most people who don't know essentially what the writing process entails, or what, stepping into that role of being an author, whether it's full-time, whether it's part-time, whether it's as a hobby, the world around us sees the bestseller lists or the top 10 in this category or #1 on Amazon, and they don't understand necessarily that those things are, for a start, very easily, kind of manipulated. Like, let's just put that out there in terms of book sales and reviews and things like that. But also that, the vast majority of books don't end up in those categories, but it doesn't have any reflection on the quality of that book or the power of that book or the impact that book can go on to make in someone's life.
Yeah. And the cool thing about a book is it's not just like a 5-second reel or a TikTok where it's just like lived and then you get a bajillion 100 views and then it's just gone. The beauty of a book is it lives on forever. Look at Mr. William Shakespeare, who wasn't even the best writer at his time. Like there was a more famous guy whose name I don't even remember because he's not studied now. And like Shakespeare was he was pretty average. And now, years on after he's passed on, people are studying his words that he probably just made up, doing plays, like it's a different thing in a ever evolving world. I don't know. It's such a humbling thing to have a book. I think I went off on a tangent, but it's still relevant.
Oh, of course. And it's so true that, You know, books are things that have a life of their own once they go out into the world, because they not only are something that you might keep and have your own, you know, copy that you put on your bookshelf and you might return to time and time again, and you might dip in and out of, or you might do a regular reread of, especially for the ones that we love. You know, we love going back to them, but also they get gifted, they get passed on, they get loaned, they get borrowed. You know, there's all of this life that happens beyond just purely the sale of a book. And I really love, for me personally, that's always something that I've really loved the energy of, that you can connect to a story or a piece of inspiration or something that really touches you on just this different frequency altogether than something in audio or something in video.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. 100%. So it's so beautiful, and that's like, it just comes back to that little like life force thing, because you are when you're writing, you're creating a life, you're like giving birth. You know, it does become a physical, tangible thing that goes on its own little merry road, like you say, through hands of people, being loaned, being bought, all the things. So it's so much bigger than like, I want to write a book.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also brilliant to have that seed of inspiration of, I want to write a book, and then find the support you need to be able to actually make it happen. Because as you say, it's a long journey. It's not something that you just do with a snap of your fingers and overnight. And you have to have that confidence in yourself as much as anything to see it through to the finish line. And I know with your walnut journey, you know, with your own book and many of the things you've created, I'd love if you could just speak to some of the things that, you know, you and I have talked about this many, many times in our own kind of conversations and chats. And, you know, it's been all of these themes around, who am I to do this? Why would anyone be interested in what I have to say? Other people think this about writing, you know, they've put their projections onto the person who is writing or, you know, intending to be an author. Everyone seems to be writing a book, so why should I bother? You know, there's so many layers to it, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the main thing about this for myself, and I know for you, Rose, and many others, is that thing of having the blinders on. I call it like slay in your lane. Like, don't just stay in your swim lane, like slay in it. Do the best of your ability for you at that present time. You know, like that's the thing that is so much easier said than done, and so hard. And that's the grit that it takes to creating things like this, because like I said, not for the faint of heart. And something that I work really, really strongly alongside with is what I call my bully demon, which you could probably call imposter syndrome, or just like the mean thoughts about yourself and all the things. And my friend the other day actually just said it so beautifully about her bully demon in terms of her creations, which was you notice that it's there, and I've always said walk alongside it, you know, acknowledge it, thank it, but it's not going to stop you. And she said with her like sort of bully demon gremlins is see it and just put it there on a shelf at the side, so it's not right in front of you. And I think that's a really good like analogy in terms of having it, because you don't want to push the imposter thoughts away. They're important, right? They're your challenges, your self challenges, to be like, do I really want to do this, or is it just like a flyaway comment in a dream that I want to write a book or become an author, right? So I think those are the two most important things that I try and accommodate in terms of anything I bring into fruition, because putting the blinders on and just concerning myself about myself, rather than looking what all the amazing bestsellers are doing and what all the you know Hay House, who are amazing, but you know, all the publishing people who have very like well articulated, beautiful, Instagrammable stuff. Mine's beautiful to me. And at the end of the day, that's who's the important one when it comes to making something.
Yeah.
Right.
And I love that, because it is so true that we have our own demons and gremlins and, you know, whatever we want to call them, that pop up. And we might start out thinking, yeah, I've totally got this. It's fine. I'm all good. I'm on this real momentum. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling awesome. It's all flowing. All my ideas are coming out. And then we eventually get to that point where something comes up that derails that. And that's when who am I to do this? You know, how am I going to bring this to life and be confidently doing it without feeling like, you know, I've given away my power to something else or someone else? Or, yeah, as you say, the comparison trap of looking around you and seeing like, oh, well, I could never do what they do, or, you know, I could never write like they write. And that's the point, isn't it? That we're not here to write like someone else writes. We're not here to create something that someone else has already done. And creativity is a muscle that we only get better by actually doing the doing. At the end of the day, we can't sit and imagine our book into existence. We have to get out there. I can't remember who it is that the quote that's from, but about being in the arena. You know, you have to be in the arena and you have to be prepared to fall down and get up and try again. And you have to be build that confidence muscle when it comes to your creativity, to be okay with putting something out into the world that is your first creation piece. It's like piece of art. It's, you know, you can always see improvements.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes, you can. And I think that's a whole other part of it, which comes a little bit later, which is when you decide to be vulnerable and brave and confident enough to actually share your creation with others. You know, there comes to a little point later on in the book Writing Road where it's time for people to look at it. You know, it's time to share an idea and not keep your cards so close to your chest, because we come out of the little writing cocoon and into like a, holy shit, this is real.
Yeah.
I'm about to, oh my God, I'm about to do this.
Someone else is going to read my stuff.
Yeah. You know, again, which is not for the faint of heart. It takes, and that or has already, you know, been a ride to get to. So it's, yeah, again, like you've said and we've said, if anyone could do it, everyone would have one, right? But there is a really, really like gritty, sticking with it part of the process that I wouldn't change, you know, what I went through for anything, but bloody hell, it was hard.
And I think this comes back to, you know, the emotional support for me, and having you there as someone who was with me through all those phases and seasons and steps, and, you know, being there right from the, you know, checking in on my intentions around my word count for the week, or even just for the day, or seeing how I was feeling after I'd had those moments of like, holy fucking shit, like this is a big pile of crap. Like, who is even going to enjoy this? Who is even going to like this? Are people going to judge it? You know, all of those moments. And that for me was absolutely what I needed to see the whole thing through, because I know I can tap into my creativity. I know I can write, but actually that process of bringing it into the world and the emotions that you go through in building that confidence, and, you know, it as much work as you can do on it, it still ebbs and flows, right? You're going to have the days where you feel like nothing you've created is any good. You're going to have the days where you feel like you're flying high, and then it all suddenly shifts within one day. And you're going to have the moments where you go, oh my God, I have to actually hand this over to someone else and ask for critique and feedback. And oh my fucking God, if that is not the most scary thing emotionally to do for most people. I mean, I would imagine for many people, especially creatives, like, holy fucking shit, what a ride.
Yeah, and yeah, as you'll know, Rose, and as you'll probably discuss in the days to come, you know, like that is a really vulnerable and scary place to be in when your creations are like up on a plate, and it's basically like you've just spilled your whole internal organs onto the outside for someone else to look at and tell you where you could be, like, you know, surviving them better. Or what, I don't know the word, but you know, like, it is hard, and that's where it's really, really beautiful to have a cheerleader in your corner, or like someone to just hold that space for you, not even necessarily from an accountability point of view, but from like it's just a little box that you know is always yours, where you can come in and say, like, you know, fuck this shit, and know that someone will be like, yes, fuck this shit, but tomorrow we'll do some more, you know, like,
yeah. Tomorrow we've got 1,000 words to write. So today we say fuck this. Tomorrow we get up and we get at our keyboard and we do the thing.
Yeah, someone who will ebb and flow with you as you ebb and flow, right? And that's the importance of finding a person that you match with, that you feel called to speak with. And I think, Rose, you and I, we just, like, it's not even flow, we just are just there together in this little box, and it's like the most amazing little space in the whole world.
Yeah, well, that's what I appreciated so much about having you in my corner, because, you know, not only was I exploring my flow as an author and exploring the times when, you know, even just down to the times of day when I knew I could write and it was coming together really effortlessly, and then having other times of day when I'd, you know, say, pop in and message you and say, okay, I'm going to sit down this afternoon and I'm aiming to write even just 500 words. And having that ability to be able to then come back and say to you, well, that didn't happen, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I had all this intention and it didn't happen, but now I know from my process and my experimentation that in, you know, say early mornings, that's my flow when I can write like 2,000 words really, really easily, and, you know, all of these sorts of things. And you were just there to celebrate and remind me to celebrate the things as well, because I'm not very good at celebrating the micro wins, and you are fantastic at reminding, you know, me to actually celebrate the things like the mini word count goals and the little steps, even just the things that you so often came in with that beautiful advice around, yes, but you wrote something today. It might not have been for your book. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that? Because I feel like you've got really beautiful wisdom in that whole area.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I suppose it depends on what your said book will actually be, but in this case with Soulpreneur as well, you know, you were already running that Soulpreneur business, so there were times where you would write a really delicious long post, or curate a like masterclass that's all transcribed, and that counts. You know, the wisdom that's in those pieces is still writing, it's still authorship. And I think and we've talked about this in other containers as well, Rose, where it's like some of the wisdom that like pops out when people are channeling posts is like, oh my god, like sign me up for the autographed novella like today, because it's so magical. So I think that you put this pressure on yourself to say, I'm writing a book, and it's scary and you're doing the things, but you're like, yeah, I'm doing the things, but also like, oh my god, that you get really down in the weeds about like, oh, I've only done 300 words, yet zoom out and have a little reality check. Yeah, you've done 300 words on said book in the document that you're writing all your stuff in, but then for the rest of the day you've just done this whole like transcript of a class that's like basically talking about the same stuff that's going to be in your book. You've written a post that's like inspired like a bajillion people and already got all these, you know, likes and bing bongs on the internet. You forget that, like, hang on, I'm actually already writing, I'm already doing this, and all of that is just exercising that like creative muscle, like you say, and putting words into the ether, you know. that's what I think. I think we just get really, really stressed out and put pressures and labels on things when sometimes you just need to like get out of the weeds and just jump into the sky, into the clouds a little. You need a little bit of both, but take a really bird's eye look at what you're actually doing. And I think that's where the celebrations are so important, because you just forget, because you get so, and that's where having that external person to celebrate you and to remember to celebrate you is important, because it can get really overwhelming sometimes as well. Especially like for me with numbers and, goals and targets, hashtag Open Heart Center, but it can get really, really, really mind-boggling sometimes. So taking a little, holding a mirror up to yourself and going, actually, hang on a second, I did create this over here, or I did, receive that from here, not just book. It's in every aspect of your life that all links into that authorship process.
It's the perspective is so beautiful, to be able to have someone outside of you who goes, actually, this is a big fucking deal that you did this, or actually you've created so much already. You can go back to those past posts or blogs, or, as you say, transcripts even of what you've spoken about, because not every author writes by sitting down and writing thousands and thousands of words all in one go. There's plenty of authors that work their best by talking out loud, or recording themselves talking and then transcribing what they're saying, and then it can get tidied up and it can get edited. But whatever is going to be your flow is the most important thing, and giving yourself permission to do it in your own way was something that I really valued, because I knew that I wasn't going to come about writing a book in the way that many other people might choose to do it. There's some people that can do projects in a very short space of time, and they set themselves a goal and they know they're going to reach that word count goal and all of those sorts of things. But I knew I needed the flexibility of going, well, actually, I'm going to have points when I'm really on, and then there's going to be times when I just drift away. And you also then gave me the permission during those moments to go, well, actually, here is the catalog or menu of all the things you can do that is book related.
Yeah.
That is still moving towards your book. Do you want to speak to that just for a moment?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to like talk about with the book thing, because there are so many things that are related to stuff you need to do for your book, right? That can still be productive but still be farting around. And let's be real, you do need fart around days. You do need to fluff about. And so this was one thing I learned from my mentor too. And it's just that like little perspective reality check of like, oh, hang on. This is book writing. There's things like again, not necessarily that important until later on, but figuring out what your subtitle will be, figuring out what you want to have on the back of the book, fighting around with the cover, all launching things and how you're going to tell your audience, doing a time lapse of you writing the book, making a video of opening the book so you can share that with all your people. You can curate as you go on deeper into the process this list of stuff that's like your fart around list, but still productive. I don't think we ever coined a term for it, did we, Rose?
No. I think we just had it that it was like, choose something off the menu and just make sure that you're at least doing something that is still book related, because those things do need to happen, and it gives you that permission to step back from the writing part if that's not working or not flowing or feeling heavy, that anything is going to be better to keep moving that needle forward.
Yeah. And I think that's to me still counted or counts for any aspiring authorcles as writing, as the process. It still all counts towards this ultimate goal, big picture of holding a tangible book in your hands and calling yourself an author.
And for many of us as well, connecting to that vision of things like the cover, the subtitle, the, you know, what is going to be your author photo, like those little things for many of us actually spark something in us creatively. And I think it's important for anyone who is considering writing to give themselves that freedom to go, actually, you know what, if I have the cover in mind, or if I have the imagery that is going to be there, that actually gives me kind of an anchor point to keep coming back to and keep returning to as a visual. Because for some people that's really important. It's the same as if you're creating, say, an online course or something. Like sometimes when the branding drops in, that helps everything else. It unlocks so much.
Yeah, agree. Totally.
Yeah, I think it's so powerful. And, you know, I think on that note of, you know, the giving yourself permission to do the things, like let's just talk about the permission slips that, you know, need to come about during this journey, and whether you give them to yourself or whether you have someone there to support you and be in your corner and give you the permission slips or remind you of the permission slips along the way. Even just calling yourself an author, calling yourself a writer, like those are some of the biggest permission slips you can give.
Yeah, and I think important for, especially for you, Rose, in your journey as well. Like, to me, one of the first ever things that I bought off you was basically like your words written in written form.
Yeah,
like,
that was how we met.
Yeah, I was like, you already are one. Like, come on.
I know, I was having this existential crisis meltdown, and here comes Lazz going, you're already an author, as I'm like deliberating over, can I call myself an author? Who am I to call myself an author when I haven't published a book? And you were just going, like, can we just hold this conversation for a moment?
Yeah, like it's so important. I've forgotten the question now. Sorry, Rose, because I was remembering that moment. But yeah, the
permission slips to call yourself a writer or an author, which I know you are such a fantastic champion for that for so many people.
Yeah, definitely. But again, I think it just comes down to that little compounded courage, those little bits of brave, those little walnuttings where it's like, I might just change my bio. See what happens. And for me, sometimes when I do these little bits of brave, there's always a magic around the corner. Like, I think one time when I just did a post and it was super scary about one of my offers, and then literally I got a bing bong like, hey, I want to book it, and I was like, oh, you know, like so little baby steps of allowing yourself to play inside something that would be nice or would be a cool little manifestation, like saying I'm an author, can be so magical and powerful and delicious. But it does take that little conscious choice or that decision to go, I'm just going to try this. Even though I'm pooping my pants, even though I've got my little like bully demon on the side going, yeah, but you suck and you smell, and have you brushed your teeth today, and blah blah blah. You're going, yeah, I know, but blah. And still, you know, have the courage enough to try it anyway, because there will always be, the outcome will always be something that you can either use or learn from or practice more into, you know.
There's always a benefit, right?
Yeah, or God forbid you actually have so much fun and are so happy, you know, like I'm talking all loom and gloom, but you know, there's always a magic that you can pull from these little moments. And yeah, I don't really have a total like how to give yourself permission other than just follow the little breadcrumbs. I call them butt smacks, but someone articulated it much nicer and called them breadcrumbs. But follow those little things that they do fall in front of your nose if your eyes are open enough or at a different angle to see them.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, no one comes along like your fairy godmother and taps you on the shoulder and tells you you're an author. So you can call yourself an author at any point in your journey, irrelevant of whether you have published something yet or not, because an aspiring author or a work in progress author is as valid as someone who has published 10, 20, 30 books. You know, that person who has published 10, 20, 30 books started somewhere. They started at the point of being an author before they'd ever published their first book. So
Yeah.
it is so much about the confidence and the journey of having someone there to remind you on the days that you begin to doubt and begin to feel like, oh God, like I started calling myself an author and now I'm full of self-doubt.
Yeah, but that's all part of it, right? And I think also like sharing it with my people, like was probably one of the biggest like testaments to declaring walnutting, being scarce-eyed and dying inside but still doing it anyway, about saying that I'm an author, because I had like the bing bongs of my book just exceeded my expectations, and similarly to you as well, Rose, like it's like oh my gosh, you get that like validation from how much you didn't realize how supported, while feeling a little bit isolation at the same time, but how supported and how invested your people around you actually are. And they, you know, people wouldn't buy your book if they didn't think you were an author or that you were allowed to be in the author list in their mind.
Yeah. Or that you didn't tell them that that's what you're doing, you know, that's a big part of it. And I love that you touched on before, when we were talking about the kind of the things that you can do that are around you bringing your book to life and those things, because that is actually all you helping to promote your work, you know, by sharing those little time-lapse moments of you sitting writing, or sharing the little screenshot of what your word count is, or going into your Instagram stories and talking about your journey with, oh, well, you know, I intended to write this many words today and it didn't happen, but it's okay, you know. And I think we sometimes don't quite know how to let the world around us know what we're working on, because it's only happening in these sort of chunks of writing. And it's like, you can't, how do I explain that in the bigger context of like this entire book before it's here? So those little moments of being able to share that along the journey is so powerful. And that kind of segues into something that I really wanted to make sure we talked about today, because self-publishing is a whole confidence journey and a walnutting journey and a taking those courageous steps. And we now have this amazing world at our fingertips online of ways we can support ourselves to self-publish. And that was basically our very first get together on Zoom and talk about authorship and writing and publishing. Was you were able to share so much wisdom around that in terms of using what you and I have both now worked with, being a platform like Ingram Spark. Do you want to speak a little bit to that and how that kind of is such a powerful way people can, I guess, step into this journey and bring their idea or their vision or their creativity to life?
Yeah, I think, and for me, I think that's why I actually had to hire somebody else to help me through that process, because I don't know how to do all the clicks and the uploading and all that. It's just like I could do it, but it would just take me hours. So having someone who had already done that multiple times was very key. But for me, I just like things easy breezy and simple. And so when the options were provided to me, you know, there's so many ways that you can self-publish, but I got two options, which is great for my sacral, on a platter, like, here's the benefits of this one and here's the benefits of this one. And to me, it just made more sense to go for Ingram Spark because of being in New Zealand, doing all the things. And I think out of my two options that I did share with you as well, Rose, Ingram Spark did cost money, but it had more benefits to the version of being able to self-publish for free, essentially. So I think that stuff, the techno stuff, it's hard for me, but it's actually like that's the easy part because that's just following your nose and clicking through all the buttons and uploading a manuscript and deciding how much it's going to cost and all the masculine, like boom, 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 ticky boxy things. It's easy. It's so easy and simple. And if you want to do it, it's there.
Yeah. And it seems so overwhelming when you've never done it before, but having someone like yourself to support that process and to show me, you know, the kind of, hey, because we can hear, you know, book dimensions and page counts and all of these things that are very hard to visualize in terms of like a physical, like shape, size, cover, you know, matte or gloss, like all of these things. I think even down to like the final day when I was messaging you going, what the fuck is the spine calculator page number? Like, you know, there's all these things that are very simple once you've gone through it at least one time. But it is so beautiful and so, you know, because our nervous systems are already on high alert from bringing a book to life, you know, all of these things we've just been talking about, the courage and the confidence and the who am I to do this and what's the world going to think of my work, that we get to these things that are like clicking buttons and entering numbers and submitting documents online, and it's like, oh my God, like this the stress level can so easily rise.
Well, I think it really is that moment when you're doing the uploading. It's that like, oh, I'm one click away from really, really doing this, you know, like it's all really simple stuff, but it's like the most mind-boggling thing in the world because it comes with all these like names and dimensions and numbers and stuff. But it really is, if you peel all the layers away and all the fancy words, it's really like the, oh fuck, I'm actually going to do this moment.
Yeah.
And yeah,
we could
to
very
me, though,
easily self-sabotage, right?
very, very, very easily. Oh, yeah, no, I didn't end up doing it because the dimensions were blah, blah. You know, like you so could. But to me, that part is, it's not, it's just the ticking the box. It's just there. It's just at the very end where, yeah, I feel like the more important stuff of the authorship is the earlier stuff, is the taking that time for yourself and figuring out who you actually are. And, you know, like you said, what times are better for you for writing and taking that like step into this vulnerable space that you're not going to get. Whereas the publishers and who you're going to use, they're all just little choices and clicks on the internet, and you can get them anywhere. You can do it for free, you can make it cost money, you can do it in whatever country you are. Easy peasy breezy. It's that other stuff that really determines authorship, I think.
And I think having someone there who is supporting and championing and holding space for those moments and reminding you of this is the easy part. Like it might seem a bit overwhelming, it might seem a bit technological, it might seem a bit out of your comfort zone because you've never done it before, but ultimately this is the simple part. It's the bit that allows your book to come to life, and you've done all the hard work to get to this point. Basically, you know, all of that hard work and those hours spent is behind you now, and you're at that point that you can, exactly like you say, click go, click submit, pick your publication date. And for me personally, it was such a beautiful thing to know that there was that option there of, in my case, print on demand through Ingram Spark. Like that's something that for me sat really well with my intentions around the book, because I know that in, let's say, like traditional book publishing, there is a huge amount of wastage, and there is a huge amount of essentially books being printed in these enormous volumes through traditional publishing and marketing, and the books go nowhere. You know, they don't sell quite that number of books, and so they get recalled. And, you know, there's that whole world of traditional publishing that occurs that we don't necessarily know or understand or see. And so I personally really loved that I could trust and know that my book was going to be printed and intentionally sent out to people who actually, you know, wanted to have a physical copy in perpetuity, right? And I can trust that I know my book is going intentionally into the hands of people and not in that situation of we're trying to guess at print numbers and returns and all of these things that go on so often. So I really, really, you know, just again, having your wisdom and your eyes on that and your experience around that was completely invaluable to me, because it saved so much energy that I didn't really want to have to expend, right? Like, it's great to be able to have someone say, like, yeah, like, here, let's walk through this step by step, and I can show you that it's not this big scary fucking thing that you're, you know, your mind is making it out to be a lot more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah, and also I think, like, because I get a lot of questions about that, like, structure aspect, like how to in terms of the publishing stuff, and you can find all that stuff online. Like, it is very easy. There's a bajillion and 5 YouTube videos and all the things, but I find that so hard and overwhelming when it's just too many choices or too many, like, suggestions, or you don't actually get the full end follow through because it's not your book. You know, it's not your button click. So, like, to have a person that's done the button click and can actually, like, I needed, for me, like, hand holding basically. Like, should I click this now? Yes. Okay. And then click, you know, to have that from actual lived experience from someone you know, rather than just like the YouTube man or woman, or long articles that you have to, like, churn through, which is just like, that doesn't light me up. You know, that just takes away from the experience. Where if you've just, like, got someone who, like, told you how they baked their cheesecake rather than the boring 3-page blog, that's way funner. Makes it way better and way more personable.
Yeah. And then add to the fact that, you know, as I was clicking go on mine, we then literally could hold that moment together and celebrate. And I know you were, like, out at dinner with friends and I was at home, but, you know, like, we were still able to send, like, a couple of quick selfies to each other and just celebrate for, like, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, you know. And that's the important thing, because to the rest of the world, it's not that big of a deal, right? You know, the reality is that they're going, okay, cool, you know, like, that's awesome, congratulations. But for someone who's been through that process with you and has been through it themselves, it just becomes so much more powerful and impactful. And, you know, when we're talking about things like manifestation and bringing our dreams to life, and we know that holding the vibe of the small moments is always going to pay off in the long run of bringing our big dreams into existence. So I just have so much gratitude and thankfulness for having you in my corner throughout this journey, and it just is the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. So I know we could talk forever and a day about this.
Yes. Yes.
But I would love for you to share with our beautiful listeners and people watching along what you are currently offering in terms of support around this process, because I know I've been very, very blessed and lucky to be your first client along this journey, in terms of going right from day one of, like, hey, Lazz, I've got this idea. And we've been on a very long journey over, you know, the majority of this year, 2022, together on this. And you've been able to really refine in terms of, like, what lights you up to support people with as well. So I would love, because I know there's going to be people watching along going, I want Lazz in my corner. How do I make that happen?
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is such a privilege. But for me, it's still very, very much part of, like, my breadcrumb butt smack process, to be honest. So I think that what feels really, really nice is by application only, because if your listeners, if we haven't met already, hello, but I still work full-time in a corporate role, and I do all my walnut things as well. So for me, I have to have a little bit of leeway to like pick and choose and decide what sort of right. So I'm still playing with having a one-off call option, or whether we just like ping pong back and forth and decide to like jump into like a 3-month support system. But so I think my answer is going to be just message me. Just message me and let's see what works.
Yeah.
Because I'm an open book. I'm such an open book for making choices and seeing what fits for the both of us. So very, very open for messages, questions, all the things. But on another side note, I also do offer like, and that this will not ever go away, is like healings and things like that, which sometimes can also open a completely different perspective on things like that in terms of supporting you. So
Yeah.
heaps of ways where we can walnut together.
You can be supported by Lazz's beautiful walnut world. And I think that's such a beautiful way to put it, that, we, much like if you are an author or a writer yourself, you have to figure out what you have capacity for, right? You have to figure out what you have capacity to take on board in terms of a writing project, the length of it, the word count, the, how many revisions and edits it needs to go through. And similarly, for someone who is going to support you through the process, you have to have the support and capacity, to support someone through a process like that. So yeah, it is a beautiful thing that you've got that ability for people to be able to come and have a conversation and let you know what the kind of vision is, or the project, or where it's at, because it is going to vary between whether it's just a one-off call to give someone that kind of confidence and perspective and clarity on, hey, you're actually much further along than you thought you were, and here's the kind of answers to those few questions that might be holding you back, through to the bigger packages that are supporting the journey as and when that's appropriate for people, or is something that you've got capacity to take on board. So Lazz's waitlist, make sure you get on it. Make sure you message her if you have got ideas brewing, because her waitlist is going to be sold out very, very quickly. So I would highly recommend getting your name on the list, even if you're just bubbling along with an idea. I think it's really important to start kind of thinking ahead to, ideas can be brewing now, but in 3 months' time or 4 months' time, when you're actually at the point that you might be sitting down to start writing, knowing that you've been in having these beautiful conversations is always really, really, really powerful. And yes, you're so right that things like your Reiki and your card pulls, and even like your, I'm thinking like your celebration program is just perfect ways to support authors and aspiring writers, or even like established writers, because those are all things that we don't necessarily realize logically are impacting our writing, but they are. And the celebration piece is something that I know for myself was huge, to recognize how to celebrate myself for the little things. And I've been in every single thing that Lazz has ever created. So I can be a personal testimonial to the fact that everything you do is magical and so supportive and so beautiful. And you are such a unicorn. And I feel so grateful to have had you with me for this journey, and to come for the journey that keeps continuing. So it is very, very special.
So delicious. And just as you're talking, I think maybe we'll even make similar to Elevate to Celebrate on being because there's so many layers to it, all the things we've sort of discussed, and make it into some sort of package. So basically just like come hang out with me on the internet and we'll figure it out together.
And I love that, because that's also a way that you can serve and support more people that isn't necessarily, if you are booked out, that you potentially in the future might have. So if you want to be in Lazz's world, you need to know that you are following her on all the things: Instagram, Facebook group, and of course the podcast is the main place where you hang out every week.
Every single week, every Wednesday.
Walnut Wednesday.
You're so welcome.
Walnut Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining me, my gorgeous. I love you so much. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I know there are going to be people walking away from this just feeling so inspired and so lit up. And I can't wait to keep sharing the journey. You'll have to follow us both because we're going to keep on sharing all the magic that goes on behind the scenes.
So good. Thank you so much, Rose, and to your listeners for having me. I appreciate it. I love you. Your book is bliss on a page. It's a privilege to be a part of this. So thank you, and I love you.
So magical. Mwah. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. We will be seeing you very soon.
Bye.
And now I need to